The Shadow Final Ending, Part 1 down below. Few months later. It has been a while. Yesterday was a kind of good day. Wife was going to look at new couches and called to ask if I would come too. I realize she sees this as reaching out. She has not erupted in a couple weeks and has been civil for that long. A combination of everyone in the house getting the flu and me throwing my back out a few days ago. Things have been all over the place, as I assume anyone who has read this thread from the beginning would expect. Since I last wrote, W got a part-time night job for a few months. That was good for me, being able to recover some of my own energy and recover some of the closeness to my kids by her having to give up some of the caregiving. She has since quit that job. I would have quit that job too. Now she has a new, much more flexible and promising part-time job. Holidays were rough. She tried to kick me out a week before Christmas. I refused. I came home to her changing the locks on the house. She hasn't changed the front door yet but did the other two. I got in anyway. She never finished the front door. Not sure why. Before that, we had started getting a bit closer. That crashed to the ground when I came home from work with beer on my breath. There was a holiday party during regular business hours. I neglected to tell her about the party until she asked why I smelled like alcohol. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Rewind to D-Day. Rinse, repeat. I got some nasty bruises on my shoulder out of that. Also had my stepdaughter trying to steal my phone when I started recording what was going on. Of course, my wife backed off when I started recording anyway, so all I have is the 14-year-old being psychotic telling me to leave and trying to steal my phone. Then a couple weeks later, nasty bruises on my chest. Have been sleeping on the couch since. Hadn't really been consistently in the marital bed for at least the last 3 years. It will be 4 years since D-Day this coming April. Still kind of in the same place. Only difference is this year I refuse to move out. I have been lurking on this board again for the last couple weeks. Anytime things get really stressful, I look here for some clarity or insight. My clothes and possessions have all been in the basement for the last 2+ years. I can't recall the last time my clothes were actually in my closet in my bedroom. I don't have a bed right now. The kids now all call it Mom's room and Mom's bathroom. We were talking about the grand notion of buying a new house. I said something to the effect of I like the idea of all the kids having their own bathroom attached to their bedroom so they can each be responsible for cleaning their own. My 6-year-old son asked, "Then where would you shower?" It is all normal to him now. That's more than enough of me sharing the events that have taken place lately. I feel like I sound as if I am after sympathy. I recognize that. My wife tells me I always want to be the victim. That is definitely what I have just done. Described how I have been victimized. I think I have learned a lot in the last year about things I was doing poorly as the cheater trying to help his betrayed spouse heal. I still have a hard time giving the things she asks for, kind words, affection, choosing her. I know all other marital issues must be put on hold while intensive care is given to help the betrayed heal. She hasn't healed. I feel like I can't get past myself to give her what she needs. I have been wondering lately what my kids will think of me when they are old enough to comprehend in terms of their own experience what I did. And for that matter, what their relationship with their mom will be when they are grown, given how she treats them and how she treats me. I have also been contemplating my own childhood experience with infidelity. My dad was a serial cheater, I think. I have talked to my sister about it, but my mom has been dead for more than 10 years. When she died, they were divorced. I found letters that show she was having an emotional affair with a former high school sweetheart just prior to dying. My mom wasn't married at that time, but the man was. My dad has since remarried, and I think to one of his former affair partners, though only he and she would know. I don't have a whole lot of emotional attachment to any of it other than being a little weirded out reading a letter my mom wrote to her married affair partner that talked about wanting his hand on her breast. Maybe you shouldn't read your parents' letters after they die. Yeah, I lost my dad for the most part after the age of 12 because, I believe, he cheated on my mom and moved out when she asked him to. There was no custody agreement. He didn't see me every other weekend. He didn't see me or talk to me unless I went to see him. That's how it stayed until my mom let him move his camper back onto the property, very rural setting. When he moved out, he lived in a camper. I guess he was fully out of the house for 3 years or so before the camper came back home. Then he was still sleeping in the camper for another year. Then he shared an apartment with my sister her freshman year of college. Then, when I left for college, he moved back in with my mom. I guess I hadn't thought all the way through that in a long time in the context of it being because of an affair. If she kicked him out when she first found out, then it took them 6 years or so to reconcile to the point that my mom was willing to share a bed with him again. But I think she tried to get past it with him in the house for a couple years before that. Or maybe she only had suspicions of what he was doing for a couple years before that. Of course, reconciliation didn't last for them. My mom finally divorced him once and for all 8 years later. Then she died 3 years after that. I never knew any of the details of why, who, or when. I really only know because my mom's sisters shared what they knew or believed with my wife, while my mom was in the hospital dying. Why would they do that, you ask? My dad had flown back from Hawaii, he was living there, to see her after she had the heart attack that killed her. Her sisters thought she wouldn't want that sob in the same room with her. Now I am regularly regaled with stories of how I am worse than my father. Wife forgot her phone at home yesterday. I know I have complained periodically on here about how much she texts another man. Well, I went through the messages she had. I still think she had deleted a significant number of individual messages as conversations just don't quite make sense. Would welcome all thoughts in both saying, it is definitely cheating and saying not necessarily cheating. And suggestions for best method of recovering deleted text messages, and the technology aspect of it is twofold. She just replaced her phone. She is now on an iPhone. Before Christmas, she was on a T-Mobile phone. I think I can get my hands on the Android and spend as much time as I like, but the iPhone, she can't know I used it. As of right now, I think she does not know I know her password. So, onto the messages I read that suggest cheating to me. W. So, any questions on your mind? OM. Naughtiest thought you had today. W. Thinking how I would love to explore the back roads around town again. OM. W. Alright, that may be a little lie. My naughtiest thought definitely had something to do about things you refrain from. What was your naughtiest thought? OM. None really. Was good today. W. You're becoming a good guy the more entrenched I become in wicked ways. Way to be strong. So, any wicked thoughts brewing now? Or are you truly a good guy in the making? I am done and crabby. So not my night. After W talked about how messy the house was when she came home the day before, 2 little boys and me messing it up. My house is trashed. W. Why for? OM. It always is. W. So, what I saw was the norm. OM. Yeah. I plan on collecting all the evidence I can. And then, I guess then I will confront her with it and see where it goes. We are almost 4 years past D-Day from an affair I had. Very little recovery. I would be a hypocrite if I gave her any less opportunity to salvage our marriage than she has given me. Which I sure can't say what is real and what isn't. It has been an insane 4 years. I do know the OM. I have met his wife, his son and daughter. I have played sports with him. I have brought up that their relationship is not appropriate. The argument is that what I did was in secret. She does not hide that she talks to this guy, so the lying and deception are not there, from her perspective. Obviously, deleting messages is deception and lying. Going to his house is lying if I didn't know. And if the back roads comment was a reference to time they spent together, then I definitely didn't know, and I would bet on it being full-blown pot from that. I can't recall if I knew she went to his house or not. I know that may sound stupid, but I do recall an instance when she had a reason to drop by momentarily. She may not have been there to hook up. I guess in my mind, I need something that can't be misconstrued or explained away. Thus, I want to recover every conversation I can. I do know the relationship is not appropriate by the flirting, and what I am reading is dirty talk. She has been having texting conversations with him for the past 3 years at least. I feel like I need more than I have before I talk to his wife. I lose control of the situation once I tell her, and I definitely lose the appearance of not snooping. The marriage has been in jeopardy for 4 years or more. I told her I view it as an emotional affair and that it was preventing any hope for recovery. She told me she isn't saying anything inappropriate. I backed off because I don't want to feel like I am trying to isolate her. My affair damaged relationships she had with other friends, and well, I hear enough of how I have messed up her life. I am sensitive to the possibilities. More than a year ago, my gut said 3 years ago. I do not normally have access to the cell provider records, but have had it for a couple months. 80% of her messages are with him. On active days, we are talking about 100 plus messages per day between them. That much conversation with a member of the opposite gender says there is something up. I have brought it up periodically. At one point, a few years ago, she told me he had propositioned her and she would not sink that low. She also said she wasn't going to be isolated from other people any more than my affair had already caused her to be. She told everyone. Good for her. Then she blamed me for anyone who didn't want to continue being her friend afterward. She has been way out of control for the past 4 years. I have been in the guilt of feeling like I wasn't trying hard enough. I have been acquiescing to many demands, including being out of the house for a couple months last year. Come to find out, while I was out of the house at her request, she was in the house texting this guy relentlessly, and she says now she had peace during that time. Call me crazy. I want to know exactly what has gone on without the words coming out of her mouth. I have told her already, months ago now, that this relationship is an affair, and for our marriage to work, it needed to end. I need her to know I know everything. I think it is the only way I am going to get to peace, because no matter what, I have to deal with her as a co-parent for the next 15 plus years. You can tell me it will destroy me all you want. But if you haven't read the part 1 about the events of the past 4 years, you don't know how much of a relief it is to believe the treatment I have endured is not all a consequence of my own actions. And it is also a relief, and perhaps I will catch some backlash for this, but it is a relief to think one day I can tell my kids their mother's behavior over the past 4 years has not been about me and what I did, but about herself and what she was doing. Or at least that her own actions were a large component. I recognize exposing her affair could change her game in ways that would be dangerous, either in escalating being physical or by deciding she has no choice but to falsely accuse me of something to regain the upper hand. I will not be putting myself in a position to be accused of anything. Thus, I am not going to go to her and say I know you are cheating with jerk face. Fess up. She might fess up. She might jump on top of me and start strangling me. She might wait until midnight, cut herself, and call 911 blaming it on me. And she might do all three or worse. Or she might do none of the above. I am not yet sure how I will handle any of it. But I know I need to know beyond a shadow of a doubt what has been going on. So, I think I have looked at all of the deleted messages that are still on the Android and have only very limited new information. Definitely nothing ironclad. A few texts hinting at meeting up but never being clear about it. A few flirty texts, but nothing indicating actual contact. No pictures of any consequence. I have to say I think I know there is an affair. Just frustrated with the lack of proof. Suggestions for direction. The short version is this. I believe my digging is the only source of answers on this subject I will ever have. And after the last 4 years of insanity, I need all the answers I can get for my own mental health. Wife changed the password to T-Mobile today. I asked why. She said it is because I am a self-righteous guy perpetually looking for excuses to show no compassion. I haven't convinced her in 4 years that I care enough about her to move forward with an actual marriage. I can't seem to get started moving on without her. The pain of leaving is to be a part-time dad. I don't have my head straight on this issue. I want to be their champion. I am not clear what that looks like in this crazy house. If we divorce, they have to deal with her without me and she will push them to refuse to spend time with me. Like she does with her daughter from her first marriage with her father. Probably harder. If we stay together, I am showing them how to tolerate anything. All the while being portrayed as the bad guy by her to them even though I know they see the contradiction between her words and my behavior. Had a really bad night last night. Has been brewing for the past week. It is the week of D-Day, actually. That was Monday. 4 years. My stepdaughter told my wife last night that she was still seeing a boy that my wife had forbidden her to see. She's 15. The boy is friends with another boy who hit his girlfriend. I agree he isn't company she should keep. Her dad allows her to go out with him when she is over there. It is a mess. That somewhat triggered my wife. I came home to her having had 2 glasses of wine and looking for someone to unload on. She started unloading on me. My 6-year-old son started kicking me. It is his defense mechanism. My wife starts yelling. He starts telling her he loves her and if I am around, he starts kicking or hitting me. He came to kick me at one point, in socks this whole time, and slipped on the wood floor. He fell on his butt. She erupted. He started crying. She starts hitting me telling me I knocked him down. I have bruises today on my shoulder, elbow and back from it. She goes to take the 15-year-old to a sports practice and starts herding the boys to go with her. I tell her she isn't driving the kids anywhere because she is intoxicated. All this time she is yelling at me and I can smell the wine. She hasn't taken a drink in an hour but I can smell the wine. So, I end up taking the 15-year-old to her practice but she refuses to let me take the boys. I know I should have. I also know it would have escalated the situation further. I came home to relative quiet. It stayed that way until 5 a.m. when she woke me up to talk. I don't normally wake until 6. Every time she starts yelling in front of the kids, I tell her I am happy to talk, but she needs to stop putting them in the conversation. So, she found a time. Compared to last night, this morning was a calm conversation, but at one point, she went to the kitchen, got a bag of flour, took a handful and tossed it into her own face as an illustration of how she hurts still. She also slapped herself a few times on the chest and detailed how she wishes sometimes that she could push her fingernail through the veins in her wrist and end the torment. In the midst of this, I have no idea what is going on with her affair. She has changed the password for the carrier's website and changed the password to her phone. I don't think I can take any more or let any more happen around my kids, and I am afraid. I am afraid I will not have my kids. Afraid I won't be able to afford a place to fit the 4 of us under the mountain of debt we have collected and the cost of a highly contentious divorce. How do people do this? I have let this go too long. No question. I have been willing to sacrifice myself but have been unintentionally sacrificing my kids at the same time, thinking I was taking the brunt of it. Incidents like Wednesday happen 2 to 3 times a year. There are enough time in between big events that it is easy to slide back into thinking things will get better with time. There was a time when I was much more dedicated to the notion of making it work, to go down with the ship, but I am not in that place anymore. This is the 5th or 6th time, I think, that she has left bruises on me. I am ready to call it a lost cause. So, I need to make an orderly exit. I don't think I can inform her of my decision until I have filed. I think it would give her an opportunity to do something drastic. I have been stuck on how to force split custody as the temporary circumstance while divorce happens. Temporary order, yes. How quickly can that be put in place? What insanity happens in between her finding out about that and there being something in force? Anything other than a legally binding agreement is going to result in her attempting to abscond with my kids. She is willing to put them through a tug of war, and with her emotional victim appearance, my kids would, at this point, choose to do what they think will keep her from turning on them. How do you combat that? I am not deluding myself. I know this will be the battle of my lifetime. And she already has an advantage with regard to custody. She only works part-time as an insurance agent and is with the kids the rest of the time. Obviously, that can't continue as if she is to start working full-time, but how does that translate for custody? I have no doubt a judge will give me more than she will, but it is the interim crazy time I am worried about. How to mitigate? No response that says work with her is going to work. Several people said to go to the police and file a report. Does she have to know a report was filed? And I don't know what else. I have taken pictures and shown people I trust the bruises and explained how it came about, much as I did here. Does anyone know the answer to the question of whether the police need to contact her if I file a report? We have seen 2 counselors together. One recommended antidepressants for her. The other recommended a different counselor who could help her with abandonment issues. Later explained to me that this was for BPD, of which abandonment is only part of the story. She refused both and stopped going with me to each after they recommended help for her. She has refused counseling in all forms since, even though I have asked her to go. With me, without me, repeatedly. Her repeated statement on the subject is that I am the one who needs fixing, not her. She sees nothing wrong with the fact that she physically attacks me, herself, and would welcome the end. The only way she is going to a counselor is if it is court-ordered. And then my expectation is it will go nowhere. Half a year later, I just wanted to say she gave a confession yesterday. I was not at all surprised by the content. I was annoyed by the hostility she had about it. She admitted to having given her buddy a good time half a dozen times and to having been fondled in return. Whether it was 5 times or 50 doesn't matter to me. Whether it was sleeping with OM and this was her way of minimizing doesn't matter to me. I put together a mental picture of the event and I find both sides of it. Her and the OM pathetic. She said it was very Julia Roberts, Pretty Woman. No kissing, as if I would be relieved that she hadn't touched lips with the dude before or after he presumably ex. I want my kids, my house, and enough of my own income to pay for the stuff that matters. How to elicit a confession. This is definitely not a how-to book. I had read a lot of her text messages a year ago. Calculated how many texts were going between her and the OM from carrier records. Blurted out that I knew it was an affair and I was pissed about it. Where I didn't have ironclad proof, I had innuendo. Spellcheck wanted to change that to Nintendo, but whatever, and 1 or 2 messages that were clear enough that I had no doubt there was something afoot. Where I could not keep my mouth shut about the fact that I had been snooping, I had managed to suggest I knew what had gone on. After a few months, she confessed to there being affection between them. After another month of me saying I knew enough and wanted her to admit to what she did, she broke down. Not like crying. Her attitude was more like, I am tired of you using it as an excuse as to why you don't have to try to make anything better for me. No real apology. She feels her self-loathing should be enough and is immediately back to you are going to have to make things right by me before I can even consider making things right by you. She answered most of my questions. What, how many times, over what period of time, where. And then, whether there was more to know or not, I told her I had no more questions right now. The only effective things I did were to make her think I knew a little more than I did and ignore her. I know that doesn't help much. Someone who wants to hide it is not going to be swayed by what I did. And today, she is back to herself. My 7-year-old has a school run today. She volunteered to help with it. He asked if I would come, too. Not in place of, I told her I was going to come. She said she didn't want me to because it would diminish her. I gave an analogy as to why it would not diminish her and she threw an absolute cursing, crying tantrum because she wanted it to herself. Then, I tried to say fine. I will stay at work and she told me I had already ruined it for her and to go. She still views all of this as her being hurt by me. She thinks I am the emotional abuser. She has said it enough that I get twisted in my own head as to what is real and what is fiction. You can call me deluded, but I am still trying to figure out what is abuse and what is normal or at least realistic reaction to my own affair from almost 5 years ago. I am not trying to be complicit to abuse. I definitely don't want to be. It's been a rough week. When it comes down to it, she wanted something to herself. I have a hard time giving up parenting opportunities, let alone when she confessed to a dirty affair a day or 2 ago. And as I sit here typing, she texted to ask if I was going to the turkey trot. I replied that you told me to go. I was planning on going. That elicited a call. I said hello. She said nothing. I said hello. She said hello. I asked what's up. She said, what do you mean what's up? It wasn't a calm I would like this to myself sort of call. It was a crying attempt at guilt, pity, obligation, and I don't know what else. I truly do not understand why it is even an issue. The one part I do understand. She is envious that I leave work twice in a week to support our kid while she thinks I never do so for her. Ironically, I met her for lunch on a moment's notice the day she confessed and yesterday. With all of this, I came out to her office to do its support for her and her boss, which I made sure she knew was not something I wanted her boss to pay for. So, twice this week I have missed work time at a moment's notice for her. She says neither of those count, since the lunch thing turned into a fight and I was looking at the other as a possible business transaction. Kids' run was great. Son was awesome and happy to see me. Lots of other parents, moms and dads, but not my son's mom. She decided it was too traumatic for her to be there if I was there too. which I was. As a volunteer, she would have barely seen me. We have done multiple counselors. There were a lot of long late-night conversations. No contact from D-Day forward with O. She defined what she needed. I tried to meet those needs. The words of what she needed always stayed the same. But they are things that only she is the judge of. Her view in the more rational moments was always, you need to do more. Flowers, massages, love letters, little notes, access to my phone and email, closed all social media, daily text messages of my schedule, GPS tracker on my phone. Though I don't think she ever used it, I did not put it on when I got a new phone a couple months ago. I don't want anyone to think I have handled my own affair well. I handled it terribly, incompetently even. I think a much healthier woman would have probably filed for divorce 4 years ago. Then again, my handling of it may have taken a much better tone if she were a healthier woman. As it is, I have been afraid in many ways for more than 5 years. Me being healthier would have helped. Me not being stupid enough, so unhealthy as to have an affair in the first place would have definitely helped. Without the false pretext that I could ever possibly change who she is, me being healthier would have helped me make better decisions when faced with the unhealthy stuff she spewed before, and especially after I had an affair. My mindset in saying that was I could have done what she wanted, if she had not reacted with abuse. There is no doubt something broken in that statement. Unraveling that is the trick I still grapple with. My comments. Over the course of the timeline, the Opus described behavior by his wife that led him to suspect her of having an emotional and likely also physical affair. This was the focus of most of the posts on part 1 until about a year ago, when it became clear that the abusive behavior in the OP's home might be harming his children. The first is the Opus's recounting of his situation in April of this year, involving violence against him by his wife and extremely disturbing behavior by his young son. The second is what I believe to be an excellent analysis of the OP's predicament, focusing on the harm that the OP's wife's and OP's behavior is having on their children. The third is another post from the Opus, in which he, finally, realizes the risk that remaining with his wife poses for his children and agrees that he needs to exit the relationship. The fourth post, from a few days ago, like 6.5 months after the OP claimed to understand the need to separate from his wife in order to protect his children, reveals that they are still together and that his focus has returned to his wife's affair rather than remaining on the harm that their relationship, and especially his wife's abusive behavior, is causing his children. The fifth post indicates that his children are, indeed, still suffering negative consequences. I believe that the Opus and his wife are both seriously emotionally disturbed, she with BPD and he is being extremely codependent, and that his children are likely being X as a result. I hope Opus may finally gain the courage to take action. However, given that he seems as confused as ever, I have my doubts that any amount of cautioning or cajoling will move him. I really hope I'm wrong.